This lecture is a short overview of Chapter 12, Simple Totals. I will cover aggregate functions and how to use aggregate functions as filters. The SQL standard allows us to use aggregate functions to calculate a single value from a set of rows or to calculate a single value by the values returned by a value expression. Each aggregate function returns a single value regardless if you are using the rows in a result set or if you are using the rows in a value expression. You can apply a given function to all the rows or values, or you can filter by using the where clause and apply the function to a specific set of rows or values. In addition, you can use several aggregate functions in the select clause and in the where clause. Essentially, within a select statement, if you use an aggregate function, you are not limited to using just one aggregate function per select statement. You can use multiple. This is the syntax diagram for aggregate functions. We can use count and count asterisk and count distinct to count the number of rows in a value set. We can use sum and average to calculate the total or the mean of the values in a value set or value expression. Max and min are aggregate functions that we can use to determine the largest or the smallest value of a value set or value expression. Except for count, open parentheses, asterisk, close parentheses, which is count of everything, all aggregate functions automatically disregard null values. Let's look at some examples of select statements that use the aggregate count. Here we have the request, show me the total number of employees we have in our company. This is when we can use the count aggregate with the asterisk because we are selecting all of the rows to count. Another query, how many customers were able to indicate which country they live in? Here we see the use of count on the column customer counting. How many unique county names are there in the customers table? We may suspect that the count will be on customer county, but in this case we are using the distinct keyword within the parentheses because we want to count only the distinct customer counties. We don't want to count any county more than once for this query. How many unique county names are there in the customers table for the state of Oregon? We see the same select statement we had above, select count distinct customer county, but in addition we have the where clause that states customer state equals to parentheses OR close parentheses for Oregon. So now we are selecting the distinct count of customer counties within one state, that state being Oregon. Let's now look at some examples of select statements that use the aggregate sum. The query is, what is the total amount we pay in salaries to our employees in Washington? We use the sum aggregate. The column within the open and close parentheses is salary. We have a condition here because we only want the salaries of employees in Washington. Therefore, we have a where clause with the condition employee state equal to open parentheses WA close parentheses, which is the abbreviation for Washington. The next query, how much is our current inventory worth? To calculate inventory, we must multiply wholesale price with quantity on hand. Notice the calculation is within the parentheses of the sum aggregate. We don't have a condition for the where clause in this query. The next query, calculate a total of all unique wholesale costs for the products we sell. Here in the select statement, we see the sum aggregate, we see the column wholesale costs, but notice we also have the keyword distinct because the query is calculate a total of all unique wholesale costs. This query, how many different products were ordered on order number 533 and what was the total cost of that order? This query involves two aggregates. We have count, distinct product ID, and we have sum of price times quantity ordered. So yes, you can have more than one aggregate in a select statement. Let's now look at select statements that calculate the mean or the average of values in a result set. Our query is, what is the average contract amount for vendor number 10014? So we can see here with this requirement, vendor number 10014, that we will include a where clause in our select statement. So here we have select average contract price, and we have the where clause that contains vendor ID equal to 1001. Our next query, what is the average item total for order 64? Again, we have a condition, so we will have a where clause. The select statement consists of average, the aggregate, open parentheses, our calculation, price times quantity ordered, close parentheses. That will give us our average item total. The where clause has order ID equals 64. So now we have the average item total for order 64. Our next query, calculate an average of all unique product prices. Unique indicates that we may need to use the distinct keyword in our select statement. Here we have select average, open parentheses, distinct price, close parentheses. Notice we have no conditions for the where clause. Now let's look at a couple of examples of the aggregate max within a select statement. The query is, what is the largest amount paid on a contract? Here we have a select statement with the aggregate max, open parentheses, contract price, close parentheses. Notice there are no conditions for a where clause. The next query, what was the largest line item total for order 3314? So we do see a condition here for the where clause, which is order 3314. And since we want the line item total, there will be a calculation in the open and close parentheses of the max statement, of the max aggregate. Here we have select max, open parentheses, price times quantity ordered. That's our line item total. And we see our condition in the where clause where order ID equal to 3314. Let's look at examples of select statements using the min aggregate. The query is, what is the lowest price we charge for a product? Select min, open parentheses, price, close parentheses is all that we needed for this select statement. There are no conditions for the where clause. There are no calculations to be done within the open and close parentheses. Our next query, what was the lowest line item total for order 3314? So we do have a condition for the where clause, order 3314, and we do have a calculation line item total. The select statement is or contains the min aggregate with open parentheses price times quantity ordered close parentheses. That is the calculation for our line item total, and we're using the min on that calculation because we want the lowest value. Our condition is in the where clause. We have where order ID equals to 3314. Can we use the min and the max aggregates in the same select statement? Yes, we can. The query is, show me the earliest and most recent review dates for the employees in the advertising department. Our select statement consists of the min aggregate on review date and the max aggregate on review date. We have a condition in the where clause, department equals advertising. The next two examples demonstrate the use of aggregates as filters, essentially aggregates in the where clause. The query is, list the products that have a retail price less than or equal to the overall average retail price. Here we see our select statement that contains a subquery in the where clause, and the subquery in the where clause is calculating the average retail price using the AVG function or the AVG aggregate. Another query lists the engagement number and contract price of all engagements that have a contract price larger than the total amount of all contract prices for the entire month of September 2017. So we see we have some conditions here. In the where clause, we have a subquery that uses the aggregate sum on contract price, and in this subquery it has a where clause that manages the condition for start date between September 1st, 2017 and September 30th, 2017, which is the entire month. In this short overview of Chapter 12, I covered aggregate functions, count, sum, average, max, and min, and I also covered using aggregate functions in filters, which essentially is the use of aggregate functions in the where clause of a select statement. Your assignments this week are the Chapter 12 quiz and the Chapter 12 lab.